Welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
My name is Matt.
And, if you're new here, what we are doing on the show is we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, from 1984's Duck Hunt to 2017's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And today's game is representing, once again, the OG. It is fighter number 1, the 1996 Nintendo 64 game. I was representing Mario. God, that's like the third week in a row I've forgotten to say that. The 1996 Nintendo 64 game, Super Mario 64. And we're not alone. If you listened to our Donkey Kong Country episode, then you already know that we are joined by a guest. Please welcome Jordan, one of our fellow staffers at NWR. Welcome to the show proper, Jordan.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Matt. Nice to finally get to the Super Mario 64 episode here. We're looking forward to this. How you guys doing?
Oh, only took us like 3 months to get through that Earthbound game.
It's kind of daunting, actually. I'm a little nervous to be talking about this game because it's probably, like, before this, I think the quote-unquote biggest game we have talked about was Street Fighter 2, because obviously that created a genre, but, like, Mario 64 is a whole other level of influential. Like, it basically dragged the rest of the game industry into the third dimension, whether they damn well liked it or not.
I'd say this is probably the single most influential game on our entire list.
For a lot of ways, I'd agree.
More than creating a genre, Super Mario 64, it created, like, a way of playing games, right? Like a method of gameplay, maybe. Yeah, super influential game.
It's kind of hard to talk about, like, what exactly it did, because few games have ever had as big an impact as this game did. Like, it's something we frankly haven't seen since, and it's hard to pull out a specific example that was so influential in such a particular way beforehand, because it literally defined the entire third dimension in gaming, and that's just not something that we never had that before, and we never had that again. It's unbelievable. Yeah,
and it's, so in a way, like, I don't know how to talk about this game, and unfortunately, let's get the elephant out of the room. There are certain parts of this game that didn't age great. We should start with, like, the positives. We talked a lot in the pre-show about how we've all played this game and kind of played it extensively, in a way.
More or less. We all got at least 1 star in every world for this playthrough, I believe. Except I didn't bother with Shifting Sandland because I hate deserts.
Yeah. You at least went into Shifting Sandland.
Yeah. I just really hate desert levels. Quicksand isn't fun.
I made it my goal to get at least 2 stars in every single world, including the worlds that I absolutely hate.
See, I was going to do the 1 star per world, but then I got to Rainbow Ride, and I couldn't stand it at that point. I was so close to getting to my 70 stars that I'm like, I'll just go back and get another one somewhere else. Like, I didn't want to deal with it. I think I made it like 80% of the way through the stage, riding the carpets, and I just like, yeah, I've kind of had my fill. Like, not that I'm not enjoying the game, but just I wasn't really in the mindset maybe for that stage in particular. So yeah, a little preview of our bottom 3 stages here, maybe.
I would say Rainbow Ride's probably the worst level in the game.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I like the way that you described it on your stream, which was Rainbow Ride is what happens when you throw a bunch of level parts on the floor and then make a level out of it.
Yeah.
I think genuinely, yeah, it's probably the worst level in the game, and I still went and got 2 stars from it. Granted, they were the 2 easiest stars.
So we're starting positive, I see. Just like we planned.
I mean, it's almost as if they needed to have an auto scroller type stage because they didn't have one yet. So I guess in Super Mario World, did Yoshi's Island, did it have any auto scrolling stages? I don't remember.
I would be shocked if it didn't.
Yeah, so at any rate, it's something that's kind of been established in the series. So we gotta do one here, so they just kind of throw it in at the end. And it's kind of funny to throw it in at the end because you could probably already be at 70 stars or well above that before you get to Rainbow Ride at all. So
I think maybe.
yeah,
I think it's possible you could be at 70 stars before you even like have the chance to get into TikTok Clock or Rainbow Ride.
yeah. If you've been doing everything right, if you've been collecting 100 coins in every stage too.
It's possible, but it's not likely.
Mm-hmm.
But to genuinely get us off on a positive start, I think the game is a little front loaded with its best levels, but man, those first levels are so good.
Absolutely. Bob-omb Battlefield and Whomp's Fortress, and I even like Cool Mountain, even though ice levels traditionally can fall to the bottom of a well in every game. And a later ice level kind of can.
Yeah.
Yep. Bob-omb Battlefield is just like kind of perfect. It's the first big 3D level that gaming ever had. And like to that extent, it is kind of small. There are teleport pads in it. Weirdly enough, they're hidden under some flower patches, and they're kind of unnecessary because of how small the level actually is. But it's such a good level. It's a really, really solid start on 3D game design, and it's got a linear path that you can follow to get up to the top, but it's also got these little areas to explore off to the sides where you can find the red coins, you can find the gate that you can open with the pressure pad, you can find those teleport pads, you can find the Koopa Troopa who you can ride on the shell, introducing, that new mechanic to the game. You're introduced to the cannons first as something that you can't interact with. They're just a set piece for the battlefield that is the level's namesake. And then later, you get to get in that cannon and fire yourself out of it. It's a really, really great level.
I think it does a really good job of maybe it's one of the reasons why Super Mario 64 was so popular, so successful, so memorable, is because the game starts off in such a high note. With a stage that really introduces you to so much of what you can do in the game, and it's kind of like the stage is mostly very flat, right? There isn't a lot of climbing you do. You run up to the top of the mountain. That's easy to do. There's nothing all that challenging or taxing doing all of the stars in that stage. The only one that's tricky is the flying one, right? And even then, there's no danger of really failing that. You just keep going to refresh your flying cap, and that's it. But yeah, it's such a good introduction to the game, I think.
I think it also helps there's no bottomless death pits in this one, which every other level in the game I think has at least one, except Big Boo's Haunt doesn't.
Big Boo's Haunt doesn't, and neither does...
neither the water levels do.
Lethal Lava Land, or... Most of them don't. I think it's just mainly Whomp's Fortress. And then, like, Tall Mountain has one, and so does a lot of the ones upstairs have some instant death pits, and that's really it. But yeah, I think that's probably like it not having any instant death falls is probably like a big part of the design, being like, this is the first level they're gonna play, and it would be really unfair if you just sort of threw them into, but if you screw up, you die.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to die on this stage, right? Like, you'd really have to just be jumping off the mountain or something like that, jumping off the top of the mountain after the King Bob-omb fight. Like, I don't know how else you would die. So it lets you, again, it gives you that freedom, that space to play around, right? And really get a feel for the controls that are going to be entirely new to a generation of players. Such an effective opening to the game.
Speaking of King Bob-omb...
Yeah?
For those who watched Matt's stream, they know that I'm gonna strangle him.
Strangle King Bob-omb or strangle Matt?
Strangle Matt.
Oh.
Because you wouldn't have seen this stream, so let me break it down for you what happened. This bastard, his first star in the game was the Chain Chomp star. He got it first. And then proceeded to never go back to Bob-omb's Battlefield until he got star number 69, pretended to end his stream
Yeah.
and then came back saying, most people don't know this, but when you get 69 stars, you can fight a hidden boss, and then went and fought King Bob-omb as his 70th star.
Oh, very good. I like that. I'm sorry I missed it.
And I'm going to fly to Jersey and fight him.
Yeah.
Look, all I'm saying is that skilled players can find a hidden boss very late in the game.
I hate you so much.
It's clearly just one of those games that keeps on giving. People are always finding secrets. Sure, Matt, I'm sure you data mined that beforehand or something like that. Right?
Yes, 100%. And actually,
Don't encourage him.
The endless staircase, of course, in the original release, it was a bug. It wasn't supposed to be endless. There's actually a top to it. So when they added this New Game Plus secret boss, when you get the 70th star from the secret boss, it actually unlocks the top of the endless staircase. It's a little Easter egg for the dedicated players, and it has an entire new ending.
I hate you so much. Hey Jordan, you got a schedule open for being the new host of Smashterpieces? I'm in the market.
Sure. What's the next game, Joe? I'm all in.
Next game is Game & Watch Gallery.
That's not the next game.
It is now. So, before we move on, would you all like to hear some fun facts that I discovered while researching this game for a different show that I do? Because I think some of the trivia behind the development of this game is nuts.
Yeah, let's go. Sure.
For first off, apparently the idea for a 3D Mario game came to Miyamoto while making Star Fox for the SNES. And he had decided I think my next game is going to be a 3D Mario game, and he was going to make it on the Super Nintendo. Obviously, this game never even entered development because that would be insane.
Star Fox already barely runs on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that's where he claims that the idea sort of started. There's also, according to Jez San of Argonaut Software, who I guess was a group that had worked on Star Fox alongside Miyamoto, Mario 64 was partially inspired by a canceled prototype of a 3D Yoshi game that would later be reworked into Croc, Legend of the Gobos. And sure it did, buddy. Croc, Legend of the Gobos. You don't know Croc? It's okay, neither do most people.
When is Croc coming up on Smashterpieces? That's got to be soon, right?
It's actually after Game & Watch Gallery. It's the very next game after that.
Perfect. Okay, I'm in for that one.
Apparently the game was made by about 15 people.
Croc or Mario?
Mario. We're done talking about Croc. All the information I have about Croc is that one sentence.
I think that was too much. I don't think you should have said it at all.
The fact that we have said the title of that game 3 times in this show is already too much.
I think that's more than any podcast in history has talked about Croc.
Apparently, the game Mario 64 itself was made by a team of 15 people. The original camera was going to be Super Mario RPG style, isometric.
Oh, that would have been awful.
And then they decided maybe not.
Sonic already tried that. It didn't go very well.
Well, Super Mario RPG already tried that and it was awful, right? The platforming of that game is atrocious.
Does it have platforming? I've never played it.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. The little I've played of that game,
really
I played some.
It's really bad.
Apparently, they also, because of this isometric style, it was also originally going to have fixed paths instead of the free roam mechanic that it has now. And you can still see evidence of that in the Bowser levels.
That game eventually got made.
Yeah.
With Super Mario 3D Land.
It's too bad I don't like that game. Apparently, the way that they tested Mario's movement actually is in the game. Would anybody like to guess? Matt, you might know already.
I've read
Jordan,
ahead. I know the answer.
Would you like to guess how they tested Mario's movement and how that translated into a part of Mario 64 as it released?
So how they tested Mario's movement in Mario 64?
Yes, while they were developing.
Gosh, I'm not sure. Is it something to do with the face thing at the beginning of the game when you start up a game?
Mm-mm.
like moving his face around now,
No, I'd like the physical controls.
Like, yeah, his physical, like Mario's physical movement throughout the world, the 3D movement of Mario himself.
How did they test that? Is it like a stage in the game or a part of the game, like a place you would go to?
It shows up in the castle.
It is an object. Yes. Object in game design terms, rather.
No, I'm not sure what it is.
So it was actually the rabbit.
Okay.
The rabbit's name is Mips, named after the processors in the N64. And apparently what they would do is they would make a test environment, and they would drop the rabbit in there and see if they could catch it. And if they could, Mario moved well enough for 1996. So I find it kind of cool that they put in, the rabbit to still be a thing in game, because catching that rabbit is still really hard, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at it.
If you're curious, MIPS stands for microprocessor without interlocked pipeline stages.
Huh.
I was a little curious. Thank you, Matt.
Actually, yeah, I kind of was too.
The rabbit does seem kind of out of place, right? Like you find it, I guess in the kind of the second set of, when you find the second set of levels, and it does seem like, oh, why is there a rabbit here? Why am I chasing a rabbit? You need to catch it because it's running away from you, but it does kind of, for the first time, if you're playing this game, it seems like, oh, well, why is this here, right? It's just kind of random, right?
The DS remake would add a ton of rabbits around that would unlock minigames.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Which I guess is why I thought there were more than one rabbit in the original game. I could have sworn there was a second rabbit upstairs, but there's not.
There is a second rabbit, but it's in the same place as the first one.
Really?
I think so, isn't it?
No, that rabbit just shows up again, I think. And you can catch it, and he'll be like, I don't have a star. I already gave it to you. Leave me alone.
After you get 50 stars, then you can catch him again.
Okay, that would explain it then. More trivia. Obviously, we know that, we know this, but some people listening might not. The idea of a 3D moving camera was so new that they figured they had to attach it to a character so that they could basically tell players, no, you are controlling this character who happens to be holding the camera, which is why Lakitu represents the camera in the game. Which, man, a 3D camera was so new back then, they had to contextualize it. That's weird and kind of cool. Another fun story. This is my second favorite one. I have one more after this. Is that apparently the way the boos work, which I don't fully get this because boos existed before this game and they worked relatively the same, but whatever. So in this game, they shrink and turn invisible when Mario's looking at them, and then grow big and menacing and go straight for him when he has his back turned, which, I mean, is how boos work in Mario World as well. And apparently, Miyamoto claims that Mario 64's specific version is based on the director's wife, Takashi Tezuka's wife, who apparently was normally very quiet and sweet and didn't talk much. And then one day, when Tezuka kept not coming home, she showed up at work and exploded on him. Apparently, this was a big reason for why boos work the way they do.
I mean, that story could have been about Mario World era.
No, he claims it's specifically about 64's versions of boos.
I mean, that's just not true.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. But my favorite story, the last one I'm going to tell, is when they were playtesting the game, they brought in a bunch of middle schoolers, one of whom was Miyamoto's son. And they had them run around Bob-omb Battlefield for half a day and watch them from behind and saw what they did, and we're going to tweak the level design accordingly. Apparently, Miyamoto watched his kid keep trying to climb up the same unclimbable hill over and over.
Oh, no.
And says that he remembers thinking, does this kid have any brains?
That's harsh, man.
Which, wow, destroyed by your own dad from one of the first successful 3D platformers.
And this coming from the guy who says, a game, delayed is eventually good, and maybe the Sun is just he's that game that just needs a little bit more work, a little more practice, or a little bit more work put into it, or something like that. I don't know.
Can't delay a child. I mean,
True.
as far as I'm aware, at least. I don't have. I mean, you have a kid. You'd know better than I do.
I don't think you should try to do that for sure.
Yes, we are not condoning that.
I think there are. I mean, not to go too off. I think there are ways to. If you want to keep a baby inside and delay the birth happening, I think there are ways to do that. But
probably,
yeah, not quite the same as game development.
But yeah, so that's some fun trivia about the development of Super Mario 64. You brought up the idea of talking about our top 3 least favorite and favorite levels, and I like that idea because there's, if you think about it, there's only like a handful of levels in this game.
There are 15.
Yeah, that's not a lot. In the grand scheme of things, especially considering like what we know today. So why don't we go ahead and start with our least favorite so we can do the happy ones after that. And Jordan, you're the guest. You go ahead and go first. Start with your least favorite and we'll get better as we go.
Okay, cool. So least favorite, we kind of alluded to this earlier on. It's Rainbow Ride. I don't like that you can't really run around and do the things you do in other stages. It's so much different. It's such a major departure from the previous 14 stages. And like, again, but by positioning it last in the game, you're almost encouraged to ignore it or to be so close to the end by the time you get there that you don't really need to do anything there. You can just kind of safely ignore it. And so in most of my playthroughs I think the most stars I've probably got is maybe 3 or 4 out of the 6, and or 7, I should say. I'm usually happy with that. So yeah, Rainbow Ride, my least favorite, and it's by a fair bit.
Rainbow Ride is also my least favorite, and a big part of it, Miyamoto's talked in interviews about like the design philosophy of the Mario games, and like later 3D Mario games would have things like Flood and Cappy and the Luma Spin that allow you to make minor corrections in your jumps. And that's why they can have more intense platforming challenges in the later ones, because it's very difficult to judge your jumps in a 3D space compared to a 2D space. Mario 64 had no such way to make minor adjustments, so they didn't make a lot of really intense platforming challenges. But then, Rainbow Ride comes along designed just like an old 2D Mario level, with no way to make those minor adjustments, and it's just awful. It's like, Rainbow Ride feels like a level from a game before Mario 64 existed. And boy, howdy, it's not good.
Until, like, I think last night when I was really thinking about this, I would have said that Rainbow Ride was my second least favorite level in the game. But no, I agree. It's the worst level in Mario 64 by far, 100%. And it's also just, it has no thematic consistency, which goes back to Matt's comment about just being a bunch of level assets thrown on the floor. And it's just not fun to play on. It's just not fun.
Mm-hmm.
When, so much of the stage is just instant death, it kind of sucks. It's just not a lot of fun to spend time there. You can't do all the fun stuff that you do in the other stages. Yeah. Definitely a pass.
Yeah, taking risks in Rainbow Ride is almost a guaranteed death every time.
Mm. Yeah, second least favorite for me, and I think I mentioned this during the preview, Hazy Maze Cave. I always get lost in this stage for whatever reason. I find the maps that they provide you, maybe it's fine for the first game on the Nintendo 64, but they always confuse me. They still do now. I think I got 1 star there this time. The one in the lake with the monster floating around in the water. But otherwise, and I did the green switch there as well. But that's the most that I wanted to spend in the Hazy Maze Cave. So that's the second least favorite for me.
See, I don't mind the Hazy Maze Cave nowadays, but as a kid, I got lost in that level constantly. I could not find my way around. Because I was stupid. I don't think I ever got past the 50-star mark as a child. Because I was a dumb kid. So
Even in this run, I didn't spend a lot of time in Hazy Maze Cave. I wouldn't rank it in my bottom 3 because I like a lot of the ideas that are going for it. But overall, it's just kind of, it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in my bottom 3. My second least favorite level actually is Tiny Huge Island. I don't know what it is about it. I actually legitimately do not know, but I hate that level so much. I go to it so little when I replay this game that I forget Wiggler is in this game until the credits roll and it shows me a Wiggler.
Yeah, the exact same happened to me when I beat the game as well. I'm like, oh, I didn't see him anywhere. Is this just like something, something you see in the credits, it's not actually in the game? But no, it's just I don't spend a lot of time in that level. I'm with you there, Joe. That's close to the bottom for me.
I don't know what it is about it. I really don't. But every time I go play that level, I just hate it. I'm not having a good time.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes down to for me.
My number 2 least favorite is going to be Snowman's Land. Specifically because of the Snowman's Big Head Star. Which has you going across that sliding platform with the penguin blocking the wind from this, like the snowman blowing on you. And the graphics of the wind is a lie. The hitbox is just whatever the game feels like it is.
But also keeping up with that penguin is a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Yeah, the worst part is that halfway through, he's going forward, then he stops and he takes 2 steps back. Like, you jerk. Mm-hmm. I always get caught by that, and I fell off a bunch of times, lost my hat. The worst part is that you lose your hat, too. You always got to go pick it up.
Yeah.
And of course, it's on ice. It's on a sliding platform.
Yeah. To make everything even worse.
I hate that level a lot.
I found that I liked it slightly more than I remembered liking it. I still would probably rank it like in my top 5 least liked levels, but I don't know. It's not great. There's a lot about that level I hate. But yeah. So what about your your third least favorite? I'm very curious about what this one is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're in step with this one. It's Shifting Sandland for me. Matt, I think you mentioned something about this earlier. I hate the instant death and the quicksand parts. I don't necessarily hate desert levels, but I hate this one because so much of the stage is covered in areas you can't really go, or you die almost instantly, and I just don't like that part. The fact that it's basically surrounding the pyramid, and I think the pyramid's cool. I want to kind of run up the side or play around with that structure in the stage, and you really can't. You kind of just have to enter it, or maybe get the stars that are around it, but you can't really explore around the base because it's covered in something that will kill you. So instantly. Yeah, it's really just that. Like I like the inside of the pyramid. I think it's a cool feature of the stage, but everything else outside it isn't that attractive to me. So, Shifting Sandland.
I didn't play it because I went in and left immediately, so I'm not comfortable putting it in my bottom 3 because I feel uninformed on it. But yeah, it's just a lot of the things that I don't like in levels all bundled into one. The movement feels really limited. The instant death quicksand is terrible. Oh god, it's not a good level for me.
See, I don't mind Shifting Sandland all that much. I have a good time playing it. I think I agree with you, Jordan, though, that the inside of the pyramid is where the level really shines, and outside is just sort of there.
Yeah, it's really fun in there.
It's really fun in there because there's no instant death.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I actually legit think I've never played inside the pyramid.
It's good. The pyramid is fun.
And yeah, it's fun.
It has one of the only bosses in the game I think is actually like legitimately fun. The rest of the bosses in this game are very basic, which I guess we can talk about that in a bit. But the boss in the pyramid, the hands, is actually kind of fun to fight, and started a type of boss that has basically been in every single 3D Mario since.
Mm-hmm.
My third least favorite level in the game is actually Wet Dry World. I hate that level. It's also the same as Tiny Huge Island, where I can't actually tell you why, except that when I was a kid, that level was a nightmare for me to play.
It's definitely tough to navigate if you don't already know how to do it, because you need to be really careful with the water level, and a lot of people don't actually know that you can change the starting water level based on where you get into the portrait.
I had forgotten that until I was watching your stream. The height at which you enter the portrait into Wet Dry World decides what the water level starts at. It's actually the only way to get it at its highest depth to get into the town area. We actually have a saying amongst another friend of mine named Joe. He has a saying. I shouldn't say we. He came up with it, which is there is no God in Wet Dry World. Because we all bonded over our shared dislike of this level. Again, I don't know what it is. I think it's mostly just like, I don't know, level looks boring. It looks boring, and I don't like the water level mechanic, and I don't know, there's not a lot about Wet Dry World that I enjoy.
I thought about putting it as my third in the bottom three, but the reason I didn't is because I really think it's interesting that you can enter the portrait at different heights to control the water. I think that's just such a neat idea. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, there's only two worlds or two levels in the game where you can do something like that, right? Where you enter the portrait at a certain time or place and it changes the world inside. I think it's just this one in TikTok Clock.
Technically Tiny Huge Island, but it's not really the same.
They're different portraits, right? So
yeah.
I for that reason I put it up a little bit higher. I was kind of trying to rank all of them in my head, and I came up with one reason to put this one out of the bottom three. So, but I see what you're saying, Joe, and I definitely get that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, in my bottom three, I would put Tall Mountain. I don't think there's a lot of interesting stars in Tall Mountain. I think the ones that are there are bland. Or bad. Like, I cheesed more stars in Tall Mountain than any other area in the game.
You getting that one from the slide was... I can't believe that worked.
Yeah, it like I did some weird maneuver from the side that actually shouldn't have worked, but I abused the physics. I think, like you said, that the theme of Wet Dry World was aesthetically bland. That's how I feel about Tall Mountain, because it's either you're looking at a wall or you're looking at a void,
or you're looking at a mushroom. I
feel like the vertical climb limits the exploration factor. It's a lot more linear than the other levels, and it just kind of it gets dull for me really quick. I just don't have a lot of fun with it.
I can definitely see what you're saying, and I think this is the perfect segue into top three levels, because Tall Mountain happens to be my number three, my third favorite level in the game. I don't know. I love Tall Mountain, but I think a lot of it is nostalgia. I spent a lot of time in that level as a kid, so much that I'm pretty sure I'm one of two human beings that's ever had the monkey actually steal his hat, because it hadn't happened to either of us. I know that this stream was probably the first time I ever got that star out on the far out mushroom, because as a kid I could just never find the bomb, which is dumb now that I know where it is, because it was just right there, and I just never got it. But I was taught a trick by my roommate to you long jump off the log and you have it. You'll land directly on that mushroom, no problem. So that felt good. I don't know. I really like Tall Mountain for some reason that I can't really put into words. I think it's all nostalgia.
I mean, I like it as well. It's in my top 5. I considered it for my top 3 as well. I kind of see what Matt's saying as well. I don't think the stars are all that interesting, but it's one of the only later game stages where I feel compelled to do all the stars. I think they're all doable. The one thing I really hate about that stage, which kind of keeps it out of my top 3, is the red coin star. I hate having to go to that mushroom to collect it afterwards. It's just so brutal. And at least 2 or 3 times I collected all the coins and then would die trying to get to that star on the mushroom. Something, to hell with that. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty fun stage. I like the verticality of it. I like mountain stages like that where you're constantly going up.
I forgot about that 8 red coin. I like the 8 red coins simply because of the jumping between the mushrooms, but yeah, I forget every time that it's going to put it all the way over there.
Yeah, it's just collecting the star. I like collecting the coins for sure, but where they put that star is just brutal. So my third favorite stage is Womp's Fortress. I think a lot of it is the fact that when I was young, I played this stage a lot. Like we spent so much time on the first 2 or 3 stages of the game, just kind of first time playing with this controller, first time playing a 3D game. Like, I spent so much time just kind of exploring every part of this stage and, again, replaying it after dying and trying to collect all the coins and stuff like that. I love that one of the stars is just blasting Mario into a wall and exploding a corner to get a star. I think that's hilarious. I like the owl that picks you up and you get to fly around the stage and kind of see that perspective of the stage from up on high looking down. I think that's really neat too. And I think there's only a couple stages where that even happens. So, just kind of a few of my favorite moments in the game happen in Womp's Fortress. So that's why it would be number 1 for me. Or number 3 for me, I should say.
Womp's Fortress is also a favorite of mine, but I will put that on hold for myself until we get there in my list.
I will also put it on hold for myself. What's your number 3 then?
My number 3, I would say that. Oh god, I was tossing around between 2, and now I gotta really make the decision. It's going to be Bob-omb Battlefield. It was between this and Lethal Lava Land. I like them a lot. I like them both a lot. The Bob-omb Battlefield, I laid it out already. It's just such a perfect opening level, and it teaches you the game so well from minute 1. I don't want to reiterate everything that I said too much. So it's a really, really, really good opening level. And I think it is exactly what the game needs, as the very first spot that you go to. And it's great.
So my number 2 is surprisingly, Big Boo's Haunt.
Big Boo's Haunt is good. It didn't make my top 3, but I like it.
I think that was the thing that, if I had to draw a line from being a little bitch kid that did not enjoy horror, to being me now, who like horror is one of my favorite genres of video game now. I think Big Boo's Haunt is probably like point A on that map. I love the atmosphere. I love the, a lot of the stars are kind of disappointing because like 3 of them are go fight Big Boo. Like 3 separate stars are fighting Big Boo.
That's half.
That's half the stars in the entire level. But at the same time, like, we all remember that piano. We all remember that piano making us lose our minds as children.
The piano's it's terrifying. It's still terrifying, 20 years later.
A little bit, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Even I'm 26 years old, and that thing still scares the crap out of me.
Like, I went to get the red coin behind it, and I'm like, oh, maybe it won't come to life. And of course it does. And I'm like, oh, man, that is freaky.
God, putting that red coin behind that thing was such a jerk move.
Yeah,
they knew exactly what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good moment. It's a very well-designed moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's really good design in general in that level.
Yeah, it feels like a neat little haunted house level, and I enjoy it a lot.
I think I disliked it more before I started playing the game. Maybe it's my memory of the stage and all the scary things in it. But I liked it a lot more in this more recent playthrough, and I think I ended up getting most or even all the stars in it. I didn't expect that. I kind of left it for, it was one of my last ones actually. I was like, I don't want to have fond memories of that stage, so I'm just going to leave it alone and see if I can get to 70 without it. But I ended up going back to it and having a lot of fun there. It's not a bad stage at all actually. Probably not my top 5, but closer to that number than it was before for sure.
I think the only star that I'm actually legitimately not a big fan of is the 3rd Big Boo one, where it puts the star on the fucking roof.
Yeah. No, that was my favorite star on the whole level.
I hate that star because I hate it just putting the star on the roof. I don't think getting to that star is very fun. Getting to the Boo is like learning the wall jump and all that. Yes. That's super cool. I like that. It's just after you beat the boss, it's like, all right, stars up there now. Good luck, idiot.
That's a much easier jump than you give it credit for.
I still don't like it. But yeah, that's my number 2. I love that level.
Just as a quick aside, I think in general, maybe we're all on the same page with this. I don't like stars that after you've done something challenging, they put the star in a more challenging place, right? And that example you gave, Joe, about that big boo on the the top of the mansion, like it's prime among them, right? You do the tricky wall jump, you fight the big boo in a very kind of small area, right? There's not a lot of space to run around there, so you've done two challenging things, and then what could be the hardest thing, or definitely another hard thing, unless you're an expert like Matt, is getting that star where they put it out of reach, right? So
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I did the thing you wanted me to do already.
Yeah,
why do I gotta do another? Fine.
Yeah, exactly. So my second one, I think Matt and I might have the same list, just different order. Lethal Lava Land is my second favorite stage in the game. I think the reason why is that you can almost see the whole stage from the beginning of the stage. And there's something interesting to me about that. At least you think you can see it all until you find the rolling log on the side and you hop in the volcano, which I think is a neat and challenging kind of an interior part of that stage. I think the bully stars are a little repetitive. I could do without that, but there's something about kind of avoiding the lava, but also there's something about not giving a fuck and just being like, I'm just going to bounce off the lava. I've got full health. Like, there's coins over there. Who gives a shit? So you just kind of run into the lava to make a more difficult jump easier or something like that, right?
That's kind of part of why I like it too. It's very freeform if you're confident enough.
Sure. I mean, if you wanted to speed run this stage, like I've seen people do it, and it's pretty insane, right? How fast you can get to all the stars, just because everything is it's all very accessible. It's all right there. I definitely did all the stars, including the coin one, which is a little trickier in this one. But I just like that level so much that I wanted to complete it 100%.
I like Lethal Lava Land a lot. It's not in my top 3, but it's probably just outside of it. I think it's my favorite level downstairs for sure.
It just narrowly missed my top 3.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've never actually thought about the whole thing of like you can see almost the whole level from the start. That's a really good point that has never crossed my mind.
Yeah, I think it's one of the few stages that's like that, where the maybe total area of it isn't that large. There's something about when you first get there, you're like, oh, this is obviously going to be very dangerous because all this lava is around, but you can actually see everything that you're going to go to eventually. There's also that shell you can get pretty early on, which lets you ride in the lava, I believe, and just kind of zipping around on that makes the stage pretty simple.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways I feel like Lethal Lava Land accomplishes a lot of what Rainbow Ride is trying. Because it is more of a straight platforming challenge in ways, but I think it's a better one in that,
for sure,
in that it's less strict, and also it's not as immediately punishing. Like, it's not instant death if you fall. You can recover from the lava.
I mean, and you can go as fast as you want through that stage. It's not like Rainbow Ride where you have to wait. You cannot go as fast as you want unless you're like a super expert player making all these crazy jumps. But for most players in Rainbow Ride, it's very slow. It's very plodding compared to a lot of the other stages, maybe minus the water ones.
Which it's kind of telling that the water levels are not on any of our, as far as I can tell, don't seem to be on either of the sides of our level lists.
No. It took a long time for 3D swimming to be good.
As some would say, it still ain't there. Some would be me.
For my number 2, I'm going to give it to Tiny Huge Island. Tiny Huge Island, I'm gonna admit it's not perfect. That baby-sized bridge getting into the Wiggler cave kind of sucks. You don't actually fight Wiggler, which is weird. Oh no, you do. He
doesn't turn red. I remember you getting very angry about that, which rightfully so.
Why doesn't Wiggler turn red?
That's like his one thing. Granted, this is only isn't this like the second game Wiggler showed up in ever?
I don't know, probably. But, hey, Mr. Miyamoto, I would like you to please contact me directly and explain yourself. That's why I don't remember fighting Wiggler, because he doesn't do the thing that Wiggler does. The reason that I like Tiny Huge Island so much is because it's something that really stuck with me when I was a kid, because it utilized it did as good a job as the rest of the game utilizing the brand new 3D idea, and conveying that in cool new ways, but Tiny Huge Island conveys it in a very particular way, because in a 2D game, you wouldn't really be able to sell the effect of the changing size of the island quite as well, because you would never be able to see the entire island in 2D the same way that you can in a 3D space. It's the first time that a game was ever able to do something like this, so they did it to great effect. And I think that it's really cool to feel the same part of the stage in drastically different ways. I think it's a very effective kind of trick, and it, like, the illusion works really well. Like, now that I'm an adult, I know how video game levels are made, and I know that it's two different maps that just have the same layout, but it feels like they're the same. The illusion is pulled off very well, and I'm a big, big fan of that.
So I think this stage is a direct callback to Super Mario Brothers 3. I believe it's World 4. I don't know if it's called Giant Land or something like that. I think it is. Where the pipes are larger, even though the enemies might be around the same size. But you do start to see the giant Goombas, the giant Koopa Troopas. And so you're kind of immediately reminded of that when playing this stage in Mario 64, I think. I do think it's one of the more interesting stages in the game. I don't like playing it that much. But I have to give them a lot of credit for what they did with it. I do think it's very cool stage.
I would agree that its gimmick is very interesting. It's just I'm in the same boat as Jordan. I don't have fun playing on stage.
No.
All right. Well, I guess that leaves it up to number 1, which I think from the sound of it, me and Matt both have the same number 1, which is Whomp's Fortress.
Whomp's Fortress!
Whomp's Fortress is fantastic. I was so hyped to see it come back in Mario Galaxy 2.
Yeah, they knew it was the best level, because they brought it back.
I think that Bob on Battlefield is fantastic. It's a great introduction to the game, but I think that Whomp's Fortress is when it first starts throwing like a real challenge at you and starts expecting you to, like, all right, now you got to start learning how to use the long jump or the triple jump or that kind of thing. Especially with the second star and having to climb that tower. It's not a super hard platforming challenge, but it's definitely a bit more than what you've had to face so far.
Miyamoto has said in interviews that the way he'll design levels in a Mario game is that he'll make what he feels is a good, fair starting level to start the game with. And then he'll make that 2-1. And then he'll make an even simpler level and make that 1-1. And I kind of feel that with Whomp's Fortress versus Bob on Battlefield. Whomp's Fortress, so Bob on Battlefield is very, very much a tutorial area. And then Whomp's Fortress says, okay, you know what you're doing, now let's get started. And it's a showcase of all of the cool new mechanics in the game in a more challenging way. And I really like that you can follow the regular linear path that takes you past the slide in and out platforms, past the thwomps and everything. Or, if you know how to use the backflip really well, you can just jump right over the wall at the start and get into the water, the shallow water area. I don't know what that's supposed to be. It's just got some water there, but whatever it is, you can get right there and skip half the climb up. It's very compact. It's more compact than Bob on Battlefield even. It's a smaller level, but it's also got so much more complex geometry that it feels like there's so much more going on, even though it is technically one of the, if not the smallest level in the game. I really, really, really love Whomp's Fortress because it's kind of like the greatest hits of Mario 64 and all the best things that you can do in the game right here in one level. And I love it.
And it's kind of like how we were talking about earlier with the, it's very hard to die in Bob on Battlefield. Meanwhile, Whomp's Fortress is the one that's like, all right, now if you mess up, you die, you get punished.
Yeah.
So yeah, Whomp's Fortress rules.
It's very good.
What is your number 1, Jordan? I'm very curious, actually.
Yeah, it's Bob on Battlefield, actually.
The dichotomy of man.
Yeah. The reason I say that is I like how well it opens the game. I'm always excited to... It's one of the reasons why I'm excited. I was excited to start the game is because I always go there first and I just kind of feel safe. I feel at home there. Obviously, a lot of nostalgia for that. Not only the theme of the level, theme song, I should say, but also just the stars, just the challenges there. I know them all by heart now. But Bomb Battlefield, it lets you do, it's kind of a sandbox type level. It lets you do whatever you want. You know, you can use the cannon and just blast off into space. You can fly around with a cap. You can climb to the top of the mountain and jump off. You'll lose half your health, but you won't die. You can ride a Koopa shell. You can step on a switch. You can pound a pole into the ground to free a chain chomp who breaks a gate. It's so neat to me that happens. I don't know. There's something really magical about that opening stage that I just couldn't not put that one at the top for me. It's my favorite stage in the game. I always, no matter how many times I've maybe just started up a game and not finished it through, I'm always excited to go back to Bob-omb Battlefield.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not in my top. It would be in my top 5. I think it and Lethal Lava Land are probably my 4 and 5, basically. And yeah, we've talked at length about what makes Bob-omb Battlefield special at this point. Sure. But I think if I could point out a perfect first level for this game, it would be they nailed it with Bob-omb Battlefield. For sure.
I do think that part of the reason that this game was so successful at everything it was doing, and so successful commercially and critically and popularly, if popularly is a word, it's because they
it is now.
It's because they started with the perfect starting level.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's a couple of criticisms, just a few notes. Moving as Mario in small ways sucks. Turning around when you're not moving already is garbage. He almost gets tank controls. It's weird. The camera has, and again, this is not their fault. This was the first camera of its kind. You got to give them props for that. But also, I'm a very big proponent, as people will know through my entire tirade through the NES games that we have played. I'm a big proponent of, even if a game has a mechanic that is now bad because of how much we have improved it since then, I feel obligated to criticize it now, because in my mind, that points out how far we have come. Mario 64's camera in 1996 was revolutionary and amazing. In 2019, it sucks.
So if we're in the hot take corner, I've got my own thing to say, in that. So we all know this game was revolutionary. It defined not only the genre, but the dimension.
We're so afraid to make these hot takes. We're so afraid to make these hot takes that we have to point that out for everyone.
It defined the fundamental world in which the game takes place. Unbelievable. No one had ever done this before. But anyone that says this game has aged perfectly and says that it's still, to this day, the best 3D Mario is so unbelievably wrong. If you want to say that it did more than any other Mario game afterwards did to push the boundaries, I'll agree with that. If you want to say it was the most innovative game in the series, I'll agree with that. But if you want to say to this day it is still the best game to just sit down and play in the series, you're wrong. And I can tell you specifically why. It's because of Mario's terrible acceleration. It's utterly awful. And the way that turning works with that acceleration. I hate it. I hate it. I hate that if you're not at a complete stop, he does a full 360-degree circle to turn around. He has to move forward a little bit while doing it. It's terrible. Utterly terrible. And we've moved on from that. And it's not the game's fault, because no one had ever done this before. They didn't know how to make a 3D character move. But boy howdy, 90% of the times that I screwed up something in this game, it was because of that stupid acceleration.
I would agree that saying it is the best 3D Mario game is incorrect. It's still my favorite, with a bullet.
With an asterisk.
With a bullet. Well, with an asterisk saying that I haven't played Sunshine yet, and maybe that'll be my new favorite. I doubt it.
Won't.
But
I love Sunshine. and it
wow,
won't.
you were
Sorry, so spoiler alert. Yeah, it won't.
you
It
were
won't.
ready for that.
I love Sunshine. It won't.
Well, we're talking about 3D Mario games, so I figure Sunshine's going to get a mention at some point. And yeah, no.
But it did not age perfectly. People that say that, I agree, they're nuts. That is not to say, again, and I feel like we have to point this out. We had to point this out with the NES games, too. Like, I said the same thing with Castlevania. Just because it didn't age perfectly doesn't mean it's bad.
Just because it hasn't aged perfectly doesn't even mean it was bad at the time.
Yeah. And in fact, it was much better in the 1996 times than it would be today. That's easy to say.
It was also by far the best game to be doing what this game was doing at the time. By far.
Oh yeah. If you go look at any like the Jaguar, I think had some 3D games at the same time. They were trash. Even by those days' standards, they were trash.
I don't know that there's any games in the 3D space from like the N64 era, the GameCube era, anything like that have aged perfectly. I think that's such a hard thing to say when we moved into the 3D space. I think there are some 8 and 16-bit games that have aged very well, perfectly strong. But yeah, definitely not this one. I think it's aged okay. I think it's still very playable. I think it's still very fun. But the camera and the controls are horrible, and they were all we knew back then. But you know, to say that they're really, really good now and aged perfectly is just wrong.
There is legitimately one single game I think has aged pretty okay from that entire like period of 3D games. I love the N64 era. It's where I grew up. It is where most of my most cherished childhood memories playing video games exist. Most N64 games aged like piss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And you can say the same about the PlayStation 1. Most PlayStation 1 games aged like piss.
This is a really weird simile because like it implies that piss was ever good to start with.
Yeah. Well,
There's a reason that the expression is aged like milk.
But you get what I mean. Like, they all aged poorly. None of them like kept that same luster. And people will say like, I mean, Banjo-Kazooie did it. Banjo-Kazooie kept it a little bit more than a lot of other games of that period, I'll admit. But even that game didn't age perfectly. I don't think Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask aged perfectly.
Oh God, I'm gonna disagree with you so hard when we get there.
I mean, Donkey Kong 64 aged immediately.
I don't know. I feel like Donkey Kong 64 is better nowadays when we know what we're getting into.
I love that game so much.
You said there was one game that you feel aged really well, and I agree. Pokemon Snap, perfectly.
I mean, yes, that wasn't the game I was thinking of, but now that you bring it up, yes, you are correct.
Pokemon Snap exactly as good now as it was then.
The only 3D game that I personally think aged, not perfectly, but like pretty well in comparison to a lot of other games at the time, is Silent Hill on the PlayStation 1. And I think that a lot of that was
a very similar game to Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same game if you've played it. There's a Pikachu in both of them. The Pikachu doesn't look very similar in Silent Hill, but it's there if you look closely. But yeah, that's just a thing that we're going to get with most of these N64 games is going to be like, and they're going to get better as we go, as people figured out this whole 3D thing. And then once we hit the GameCube, we're golden.
Maybe one day we'll stop apologizing for our opinions.
Well, when our opinions are on the most influential game ever made, but also we have anxiety. No, we won't.
Can I ask a question? I know a lot of people put Super Mario 64, if not in the number 1 or top 3 spot, in their top 10 games of all time. Like, what do you guys think about that? If someone, or you see those lists like IGN puts out or something, where they put Super Mario 64 as the number 1 best game of all time or something like that, what does that statement mean to you guys?
It depends on what context we're talking about it. If we're talking about it from a historical standpoint, then yes, I would absolutely give it that for sure. But if it's a holding up, like, still fun to play thing, like, I think there are better games to give that title.
There are better games in the Mario series.
Yeah, there are better games in the Mario series. There are games from before Mario 64 that, while they didn't impact the industry as hard as Mario 64 did, they still aged well. Like Chrono Trigger, I think, has not aged a day.
No, not a day.
Super Metroid, when we played it, I don't think that game's aged a day. For
Super
the most
Metroid
part.
aged a single day, in my opinion. In that I hate shifting between the missiles and super missiles instead of just like holding a button. And that's the only thing I can say about that game that I don't like.
And in a lot of ways, during your stream, Matt, you made the hottest take that could have possibly happened, which was Mario 64 is Ice Climber, which I disagreed with, and then brought a different possibility to your table, which we both agreed with, which is Mario 64 is the Kid Icarus of 3D games. It is, you can definitely see that you are getting there, but Mario Brothers hasn't come out yet and shown people, oh, that's how you make a 2D platformer and make it good.
So I said that and I agreed with it, but I also think it's wrong because
I think it's the Super Mario Brothers of 3D games though. Like 100%.
I would say, to answer your question, Jordan, it does definitely depend on if you're talking, are we looking at the scope of their impact on the industry, or are we looking at, I want to sit down and play a game right now in the year of our Lord 2019? Yeah. If we're going with the latter, if we're going, what is a game I should sit down and play right now just to have a good time, I don't even know if I'd put Mario 64 in my top 50. But if we're talking what its impact on the industry was and its historical importance, it is easily number one, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I would agree with that take.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in step with you guys as well. I don't know that it's probably one of my favorite games. I don't think it is one of the best games. I do think it's one of the most influential, like you guys have said. It certainly shaped where we are today. That's for sure. Just something interesting I was thinking about. Well, I do want to add one more thing, because we were talking about like the 3D generation. I kind of appreciate Banjo-Kazooie a little bit more after playing this game. Like I played that when I got Rare Replay on my Xbox One, and I enjoyed it, but I thought it was a little bit rough. But after playing this game, I think I do think that Banjo-Kazooie has aged pretty well too. So again, not perfectly, but I think it's very, very playable, just like Super Mario 64 is.
I think Rare's 3D platformers in general really benefited from coming after Mario 64. As Banjo-Kazooie, especially, they could look, and I mean, you can even see it in Banjo-Kazooie as well. They both have the same first level. They're both a spiral mountain that you're climbing up.
Yeah.
Well,
right,
also
exactly.
with Banjo-Kazooie, I brought up two specific complaints with Mario 64. One of which was that you can't readjust your positioning when you're already in the air, and the other is the way that the acceleration screws with your turning. Banjo-Kazooie fixed both of those things, and it had the benefit of having already played Mario 64 and knowing how it feels when you don't have when you mess those two things up. So, like, it's standing on the shoulders of giants still for sure, but they definitely improved on that formula. And like you can even see within, what was that, not even a year, maybe 2, they were already doing new things to improve upon the formula and make things better than they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've been going for, this is already shaping up to be the longest episode we have had, which fitting, to be fair.
I mean,
if any game's going to be our longest episode yet, it might as well be Mario 64.
And I mean, before that was Mario World, which was also, at the time, one of the most influential games ever made.
Yeah.
Although we haven't this time around issued a challenge to a former Nintendo of America employee who currently works at Bass Pro Fishing. So, hey, that's a change.
They don't necessarily have to be working at Bass Pro Fishing. Jordan, do you have any ex-Nintendo of America employees you'd like to challenge to a fight? It's kind of a tradition now, I guess.
Would Nestor count? Can I challenge Nestor to a fight? We'll just pretend for a second that he's real. He's real in all of our hearts, obviously. But after Nestor's Funky Bowling, man, like, I gotta take that guy out. I think that was the final straw, I think.
All right, we'll put that on record. That is Jordan's challenge. That has to happen in every single guest episode now, by the way.
I think Nestor's Funky Bowling actually isn't one of the worst Virtual Boy games, so I stand a little bit corrected there. But He was such a jerk in those comics, so he's definitely got something coming to him.
I'm gonna arbitrarily issue a challenge to Leslie Swan, who was the voice of Princess
The
Peach.
voice of Peach.
Voice of Peach.
And I believe the editor-in-chief of Nintendo Power at the time as well.
Was she?
I believe so.
I didn't know that.
She was indeed the senior editor of Nintendo Power in 1996. That is how she landed the job of voicing Peach.
Damn. What I do know is that she became a localization manager for Nintendo for a long time, and only retired in 2015. I don't actually have any beef with you, Leslie, but I just wanted the chance to say that. So, I'll challenge you. I also have Leslie Swan's Mario Wiki page open, and the top reference is with an interview with one Billy Berghammer, founder of Nintendo World Report.
Ah, interesting.
Good find there.
It all connects.
It's all coming up Millhouse.
So, as we're starting to get into the twilight years of the episode, what the fuck does that mean? As
You're
we're
not.
starting to
what
get
are you
You
saying?
are not editing that out.
I didn't know you were going to
that's
finish that
staying in.
phrase, but
that's
man.
staying in. As we're getting to a wrap up point.
Can that be that's got to be one of your closing lines or approaching the end of the episode lines every time, I think.
As we're entering the
when you
twilight
want to
years of
when
the
you want to
episode.
segue to like the music part of the end of the podcast.
Getting to the point where we got to take this episode back behind the shed and tell it to keep watching that sunset. What's happening?
That might be worse. That might be worse than
This is
Twilight.
what
Line.
happens when we record an episode at 1 a.m.
It sure does.
Keep watching the sunset in the twilight. I don't even know what the hell you said. I've forgotten. It's so stupid.
Two different periods of time are happening at the same time right now, and I just need you to understand that. Let's talk about the soundtrack, shall we? And we have to open with, there is one song that stands above all else.
The best song in the game, and I hope we say the same thing.
Oh, we better.
I don't think we're going to. I'm worried now. Like, I know I have my number one by a mile, but
Well, this isn't me necessarily saying our number one, but like this is the most iconic song to come out of this game.
Let's count down from
100%.
and hope we say the same thing. 3,
okay.
2, 1.
Slider.
Radar Docs. I knew that was the Twilight thing, and the sunset just screwed me up. I probably had the right answer, but oh no.
Well, just keep your thoughts on that. But I'm gonna start with what I think is the most iconic song to come out of the game. It's Slider.
And I'll tell you why you guys are saying that. I think it's because of the tie with Smash Bros, right? Like, that is such a huge part of the Smash Bros soundtrack. I feel like you're always hearing that song on the Mario stages, but is that it? Like, am I off there?
That's part of it. It's also just like that's the song from 3D Mario that you hear the most often nowadays, like in other 3D Mario games. Like, it's in Galaxy. I'm pretty sure it's in. Is it in Sunshine?
I don't think it's in Sunshine, but it is in Mario Maker.
It's in Galaxy. It's in Mario Maker. I'm pretty sure it's at least at some point it's in Odyssey. Like, it shows up, and it's even started showing up in, I think it's in 3D World. It started showing up in some 2D Mario games. Like, this is the one that's been brought over from Mario 64 into, and other songs from Mario 64 obviously have shown up, but not to the extent that Slider has.
I just think there is so much energy to Slider. And it's the most memorable song for me because it shows up in the first secret star in the castle, which is Princess Peach's secret slide, and it was one of those moments where it's like, oh, there's some special stuff going on here. We just like jumped into a stained glass window and suddenly found a secret area. Like there's things to find and explore, and here's a uniquely 3D concept of sliding down this swirling slide down to a secret star, and you can get a second secret star if you do it faster. It's such a memorable, specific moment in the game, and it's tied into one of my favorite compositions on the soundtrack, which has a lot of driving energy forward that it gets the blood pumping, and it feels a lot like, you know, things are happening. Like we are on the forefront of a revolution with this song.
But it gets points off because it plays on Rainbow Ride. So that's that's points off. Jordan, don't worry. I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna make you feel better by saying that my favorite song in the game is Dire Dire Docks.
Thank you. I think I was trying when you guys had this thing about maybe the most iconic or most famous song from the game. I was going with, I think, just thinking about my favorite ones, the ones that maybe are the most memorable to me, and Dire Dire Docks is definitely one of those songs. I love that song. I could listen to it any time of day.
It is absolutely fantastic. It's the best thing to come out of those water levels.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It makes them tolerable, I would say.
Dire Dire Docks, while I wouldn't really call it iconic in my mind, it has one of the coolest musical things going on, where in both of the levels that it plays in, as you progress through the level, it adds more instruments into it, and it gets the feeling, it enhances the feeling that you're progressing, and really helps to add a sense of momentum, and the song is evolving with your progression, and it's just so cool. I love when games have dynamic music that changes based on what you, the player, is doing. And this was one of the first examples ever.
That's another thing you'd see like Banjo-Kazooie took and just ran with real hard for all of their levels.
Yeah, and it's by no means the first. I mean, hell, Mario World did it with Yoshi. But I love when songs do that. It's my thing. And so it's so good.
Dire Dire Docks, I kind of put I did a top 3 music tracks as well. Dire Dire Docks was number 3 for me. You don't really hear it in the game very much, unless you kind of deliberately try to listen for it. But I was listening to the soundtrack again this afternoon, and it's Piranha Plant's Lullaby. When you first encounter in Womp's Fortress with the sleeping piranha plants, and if you get a chance to listen to like the 2 minute or 2 minute 30-second version of that song, it's really, really nice. It's very, very peaceful, and it's just something kind of makes you feel happy. It does kind of put you to sleep a little bit. I guess that's that's the idea, but it's a really, really good song that I think a lot of people will never hear. At least they might hear the first few notes before they kick the piranha plant in the face. But if you want to hear more of it, I guess you leave the piranha plant sleeping, or you have a look at the soundtrack or something like that. But it's very, very good.
The official soundtrack has like a piano composition of it. And it's so pretty.
good,
it's
right?
such a
Yeah.
nice piece.
Yeah. It's a shame that it's very likely you can to miss it, right? Or to ignore it or just hear the beginning. Because if you hear the whole thing, it's quite good.
I'm gonna bring up a bit of a dark horse. I like the haunted house theme that plays in Big Boo's Haunt. It's not really a melody so much as it's an atmospheric sound, which was also something really new to the era. Songs in video games weren't really able to be very much but melodies before we started to move into the 3D era. You would see it in a couple games, but like in the examples we just had, Donkey Kong Country, the more atmospheric musics in that game felt kind of weird because they only had so many sound channels to work with. And now getting into the 64 and other consoles of that era, we started to have a lot more sound channels to work with to let us have a fully featured sound instead of just a melody. So Haunted House is one of the earliest songs in that regard to really just give that atmospheric feel, and I love it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Horror kind of lives and dies on its atmosphere, which is why, like, it's no coincidence that horror games became a major thing in this era. Like, Resident Evil came out the same year as Mario 64, and it, like, revolutionized survival horror. It's that kind of thing that, yeah, I think this is a great example of it. I am a big fan of, and nobody ever agrees with me, but I think that this game's Bowser theme is the best theme he's ever had.
This is during the song during the Bowser fights?
This is the ones during the non-final Bowser fight, which we will probably talk about that song in a bit. But, like, I just really, really, really like this theme. For me as a kid, like, this defined what Bowser was supposed to be.
I almost put this on my list as well, Joe. I think it's really good. I think it starts off so kind of dramatic, and it's almost like a rap or a hip hop kind of beginning to it, you know, and then it gets really ominous in the middle. It's very, very good. I enjoyed that one a lot.
It just feels evil.
Yeah.
And Bowser nowadays is he's a bad guy and he's very evil and threatening, but they also try to find like a humorous side to him, which I love. I love how Bowser works nowadays in most of the games. But, like, this was my first experience with Bowser ever, in any way. This is the first Mario game I ever played. So, like, this theme just being directly in your face and opening with that dun 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 it's just, I love it so much. It's so good.
It's a really good composition, but for me, Koopa's Road pushes it out just a little bit for me. It's not the same, like, boss character theme, but it's got that driving tension going through it that I think is really strong.
And it's another song that would show up in other 3D Mario games from here on. So yeah, it's notable in that regard as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone's gotta be basic and bring up, the song, the one that you hear most often, the Super Mario 64 theme. That plays in Bob-omb Battlefield, and Whomp's Fortress, and Tall Tall Mountain, and Tiny Huge Island, and so many more.
No, I think that's it. I think you just named all of them.
There's at least one more, isn't there?
No, I think that's it.
Well, okay, there's a
4 out of 15 is pretty good.
It is.
There's a direct remix of it for the snow levels too, though. So it's sort of a basic pick, and people kind of overlook it a little bit because it's more saturated than the other songs in the game, but it's a really solid one. And it would eventually come back in Mario Galaxy, fully orchestrated, or in Mario Galaxy 2.
Which is such a good version.
My favorite part of the throwback Galaxy version is when it's going like, ba-dum-ba, ba-dum-ba, bum-bum-bum-bum-ba, and there's a guy in the background that just goes, huh!
That's good. Yeah, I gotta listen to that one again.
It's a great song, though, which I think it's a little underrated. It's not as good as Slider for me, but it's very, very good.
I think the fact that it appears so often in the game and you don't really get bored of it, like you still enjoy it every time you hear it. Why the reason they used it so many places, and like you said, Matt remixed it for the ice levels too. My number one music track, you don't hear it very often, and you can very well beat the game without ever hearing it. But I think it's really cool, is the Metallic Mario theme that plays when you put on the green cap, or the metallic cap. About 40 or 45 seconds or so, but it's very upbeat and kind of really pushes you to, go as fast as you can while you have that temporary power up. And I remember I had the OST, or at least a version of the OST on CD, way back when the game came out. And I remember I wanted to play the Metallic Mario theme like over and over again because I really, really love that track.
I would say between the two power-up themes, it's the better one.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's still really weird that, like, Metal Cap gets his own theme, but the Vanish Cap, the Wing Cap, and the Koopa Shell all have to share one song.
That's right, yeah.
I think my last song that I really, truly want to mention is, it's the ultimate Bowser fight. It's the final boss theme. First off, organ pieces on their own in general are so fucking cool, but this one in particular is just the way that it sort of slowly builds at first and then just cascades down with the da 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 da. It's so good. Oh, I love it.
It makes me think of something like Castlevania, that truly belongs in like a horror game maybe, or a horror action game or something like that. It's so Yeah. It just feels as large as the fight is,
That's a good comparison.
or as grand as the fight is.
It makes you forget that all they did was make Bowser rainbow. And you're just fighting the same boss you fought twice already.
Yeah.
That speaking of, all they did for like Bowser things, this is just like a totally unrelated, but it's just I didn't say it anywhere else in the episode, and I feel like it's important for me to say. Bowser's laugh and the boos laughing are the same sound effect. It's just sped up for the boos.
Yep.
It has absolutely nothing to do with what we were talking about. I just wanted to make sure I said it.
Well, you're going to hear it during that fight, so it is connected somewhat. It's a challenging fight too. Like I mean, I don't know. We didn't really touch on the Bowser fights too much, but that one, when the stage changes, so it's just a star shape, like it's pretty. It can be pretty tricky, right?
Something about that screws me up.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like I would keep. I lost that fight twice, I think,
I did
before
too.
I actually beat him. But it was just I did the first 2 hits perfectly, and then it turns into a star, and then I guess my brain just goes away and shuts off, and I couldn't get that last blow, no matter how hard I tried.
Well, at that point you can't like throw him close to a bomb anymore and just kind of inch his way towards the bomb. You have to do a big throw and hit the bomb at a distance, right?
I learned during this playthrough that I'm actually surprisingly good at Super Mario 64, especially the Bowser fights, because I was able to land them in one try every time.
You're specifically really good at Mario 64 when you say you're about to screw something up.
Yeah, that seems to be the secret. When I say like, oh, this is going to be a disaster, I'm going to fail it super hard, and then I get it first try flawlessly.
Yeah.
It's weird. But like it's that until I got to that one, the third hit of that fight when the arena has become not a circle anymore. And my brain's just like, I don't know. How do I process this? No, we can't do what? No.
I've got one more song that I think is the obvious choice to finish on. It is, of course, the Staff Roll song. This is my favorite credits song, probably of any game. I think it hits all of the exact correct emotional tones, and I have been using it as like my stream ending music for a while now. It's just got that perfect feeling of resolution to me. Like I was saying, it's like I was saying that there's an emotional tone to every song that makes it resonate with me, and this one is a feeling of finality and closure. I think that this song does that better than more or less anything I've ever heard. It's such a wonderful, important song to me in that regard. And I think it's the perfect song to end the game on.
I think I kind of agree. This is among one of my favorite. I get extremely emotional when I listen to this song for roughly the same reasons. I think it's up there for me as well.
It's a great song for kind of bringing you down off that high of beating the game, right? Of a very challenging boss fight, or certainly one that can be, and then to kind of be rewarded with this. I mean, I think there's a lot of good ending songs, but I think this is probably one of my favorite Mario ending songs for sure.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good list, honestly. And I think, yeah, ending on the Staff Roll is probably the best.
That's a good
the
call.
best we could ask for. So this is already a monster, our longest podcast so far by a good half hour.
Mario World was long, but
it was only a little over an hour, if I remember correctly. But like, again, fitting. This is the most historically significant game we have yet talked about, possibly that we will talk about for the whole show. In fact, I don't even think possibly is a word I should be using there. It is the most historically significant game we're going to talk about for the entire show.
Are you sure it's not Tokyo Mirage Sessions?
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. That's the most historically significant game we're going to talk about the whole show when we get to it in 7 years.
Not Pokemon Conquest?
I think you're thinking of Fire Emblem Blazing Blade.
I think you're both thinking of Croc.
That brings it up to like 6.
Yeah, whoops.
6 times that game's been. If you say it another time, you'll summon him.
My hope was to end the episode on Croc. Joe, you only have yourself to blame here. You know that, right?
If somehow this episode leads to Croc being the 5th DLC character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, despite having... Did Croc even get a sequel? Is there a Croc 2?
I hope not.
I'm not even going to look it up because I don't want
Our
to
next
know.
game. Representing fighter number 75. The final character in Fighters Pass number 1.
Croc. Oh, God. So, real quick, we have to address something because something happened since our Donkey Kong Country episode. A new character was announced, and also a new "The Show Is Never Ending Ever" was announced.
So, okay, I want to put this out here real quick. Every time something like this happens, someone comes to me and is like, "Yeah, how do you feel about the show getting extended?" And it's like, do you think that I'm not hyped to be doing more games? Like, legit? Do you think I would have started this podcast if I was just like thinking every time, like, God, I wish it would end?
Every new character slot that's announced is a new chance it could be Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins. I'm constantly living on a terrifying tightrope.
I feel like the most terrifying thing it could be is another Kid Icarus character. Because then we're screwed.
No, we have a plan for Viridian. Who else would it be?
Medusa as an Echo Fighter?
If it's Medusa, then we just play another Castlevania game. If it's Hades, then we play a Disney Hercules game. Now, Terry Bogard was announced. He is fighter number 74. We do not know what game we are playing for him, and likely are probably going to save trying to figure that out until November hits when he comes out, just to see how he plays, what kind of character he is. We know nothing about Terry Bogard.
Man, you say that, but you just wrote an entire script about him.
I did just write a whole script about him, but even then, like,
right.
I don't know enough to pick a game. We will figure out a game eventually. Even if we pick like one of the older Fatal Fury games, it should be noted that we will not play the game until Terry is out. We have mutually agreed that should be a rule, that if a DLC character is announced and their game came out either before or, in this case, if we had chosen Fatal Fury itself, or the best King of Fighters game, as we're told, it actually would have been before Mario 64. So we're just going to wait until Terry comes out. That's basically what it comes down to.
I also just personally need that character art up on my stream layout, so
yes, also that. So yeah. And then, 500 more characters will show up because Sakurai could never sleep.
Because God has punished us for our hubris and our work is never finished.
With that, it's time for Matt and I to move on and free Jordan from this hell we have dragged him into. And by hell, I mean we had a good time playing Mario 64, right?
I think we all made it a hell equally.
Yeah, taking that as we will.
Yeah. No, it was good. I don't know. I was trying to aim for one of your Twilight or Sunset comments, but I didn't quite get there. This was fun. Like I liked going back to the game and having it. I've never had a chance to obviously podcast about this game before, and to kind of explore those thoughts about the game and talk about the really great music and stuff was really fun. So, thank you guys for having me on. This was a blast. If we get another chance to do this, I'd love to do that.
Thank you for being here. I'm still trying to convince Joe to let guests be on a second time.
And I am steadfast.
And all those times of me saying, oh, this is more Joe's show than me, just so that I don't have to actually make any decisions, are coming back to bite me because now he has all the power.
Well, also, I mean, one day you may wear me down, but not anytime soon. But, keep in mind that at our current pace, this show will be going until we die.
When they get to 100 fighters, you're going to need people to come back. And so just let me know at that time. Okay?
Do you think they're shooting for that number? I think they might try to hit it.
I hope not. Not because I don't want them to, but also because Sakurai's got to sleep eventually, right?
No, he's so excited to be doing
Yeah,
this.
I know he is,
he's
but
excited.
he's got to sleep eventually. I could be excited for a lot of things, but that man is working himself to death. So Jordan, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, so please check out my reviews on NintendoReport.com. I've been putting up a lot of previews of PAX games, PAX West games that I played a couple weeks ago. You can find those on NWR TV on YouTube. But just on Twitter, I'm always posting links to my stuff as well. It's at Riskman64, RISKMAN 64. 64 appropriately enough for our Super Mario 64 episode, because that's where it comes from, of course. Please find me out on Twitter. Happy to chat with you guys online.
And again, thank you for being on the show. You are our second guest, number 2, both for Mario games, funnily enough. Our next guest is not for a Mario game. Don't worry.
It was good to be on a podcast with you, Jordan, where I wasn't slowly losing my grasp on sanity and consciousness.
Yeah, I think the only Matt I remember is the drunk 3-hour Fire Emblem podcast Matt, so it's good to see that there's another side of you.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it's time for us to... I hope we enjoyed beating the last 2 games in one go, because back to games that will probably take us probably up to the end of the year. Our next game is representing fighter number 61, which I believe... No, that's not our highest number. We've done Simon and Richter. What am I talking about? It's close, though. It's fighter number 61, Cloud. It is the 1997 game originally released for the PlayStation 1. It is one of 2 PlayStation games we will be playing for this. Final Fantasy VII.
One of the most iconic JRPGs ever made.
Pretty much. The JRPG that signified the end of an era, being the end of Square's time working with Nintendo, because they famously pulled the rug out from under Square.
Whoops.
If you do not know that story, it basically goes like this. Final Fantasy VII began development for what was going to be Nintendo's next system at the time, because Square and Nintendo had a very good relationship. Final Fantasy was basically a Nintendo franchise. Not really like owned by Nintendo, but its home was on the Super Nintendo and the NES and all that. But then Nintendo was like, hey, our next console, still gonna use cartridges. And Square was like, but we already started work on this game. It's not gonna fit on a cartridge. And Nintendo said, well, I don't know what to tell you. We're using cartridges.
And then Square went over to the platform that was literally created by Nintendo's mistakes in the CD-ROM realm.
Yep. Sony slipped into those DMs and said, hey, we're using discs. And Final Fantasy VII ended up being a PlayStation game, one of the most famous PlayStation games of all time, among, names such as Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and Silent Hill and Resident Evil. It's huge.
Probably directly responsible for Nintendo losing the console wars 3 generations in a row.
Probably. It's I think, generally assumed to be this was a huge loss. This was possibly one of Nintendo's biggest losses. And it's finally on Nintendo systems for the first time, by the way, this year. It finally hit a Nintendo system for the first time in 2019, which is the version both of us will be playing, I believe, correct? We'll both be playing the Switch version?
Absolutely. Assuming we don't take so long that we can just play Remake.
Yeah. That game's not coming out. Yeah, we're going to play Final Fantasy VII. Have you ever played a Final Fantasy game?
I have never played any Final Fantasy game. I played, when I was, 10 years old, I played, 3 hours of Final Fantasy VI. And I was 10 years old and had no patience and didn't like reading. So I didn't like it, obviously. But I would not count that as actually properly having played a Final Fantasy. So this is going to be my first time with the franchise.
My first time with the franchise has been I've started multiple Final Fantasy games at least once in my life. I watched a full long play of Final Fantasy VI, which doesn't count as playing it, obviously, but like I've seen the story of that game. I started Final Fantasy V on stream at one point a long time ago. Like we're talking, it was probably like 2011 when I did that. I've started Final Fantasy VII at least 4 times in my life and never made it out of Midgar. I am currently working through Final Fantasy X alongside a friend, which that will probably be the first time I beat a Final Fantasy game. I imagine I'm going to finish that before I finish 7. I have started Final Fantasy 12. I have started Final Fantasy 13. I have started Final Fantasy 15. I've played a little bit of Final Fantasy 14. I've played a good amount of Final Fantasy games. I've beaten exactly 0 of them. So I'm very excited for this, especially considering this is like either the most popular or the second most popular, depending on who you ask. Because a lot of people will also tell you that 9 is the best game in the series.
I mean, I'm sure not the one to tell you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the one to tell anybody either. So yeah, our win condition is, of course, beat Sephiroth. We're finally going to fight Sephiroth. You know, him. The villain of Final Fantasy VII that everybody wants to fuck.
What?
Everybody wants to fuck Sephiroth.
No, I feel like that's a better joke if you just ignore it.
I'm pretty sure that's the plot of the game, last I checked.
No, that's Kingdom Hearts. I can see Reed get confused.
Huh? Oh, yeah, I mean, he's in that too. Which, fun fact, this is the first time I ever met Cloud or Sephiroth. So to me, I'm playing the Kingdom Hearts spin-off title, Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, buddy.
People are already getting ready to stone me in the comments. So yeah, we're going from one of the most influential platformers of all time to one of the most influential RPGs of all time. No pressure here. And then after that, we get to play the Game & Watch games.
Hey, are you going to say that Game & Watch wasn't influential?
Yes. In terms of... No, he was pretty influential. He was the first handheld video games, basically. So, just like Earthbound, we are going to split this into parts, except I don't have, like, fully outlined parts for this one because I've never played Final Fantasy VII all the way through.
I feel like it's better without planned parts like that.
Well, the first 2 have very easy milestones to hit. Being, what we're going to do for this first part is we're going to get out of Midgar.
I'm still of the opinion that I feel like we shouldn't pre-plan the parts out.
We're gonna get out of Midgar, because that's apparently where the game gets good.
I've heard this before.
Most people that I have ever talked to while playing Final Fantasy VII, or most people I've talked to that are fans of Final Fantasy VII, I should say, have said that every time they go replay the game, they forget that, oops, I forgot, I have to get out of Midgar first. So... at least the first 2 are probably going to be get out of Midgar and finish Disc 1. Past that, I don't fucking know. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. I don't have anything. So...
I've heard this promise that this long JRPG finally gets good several hours in before. Historically, it hasn't gone well for us.
We'll see. At least this one isn't divisive very much. Like, Earthbound... For all of the people that kept telling us that about Earthbound, that game is divisive, historically, super divisive.
And didn't sell.
Yeah, and didn't sell. This one, however, is not a cult hit. It was a hit. Like, through and through. Like, the biggest hit that the PlayStation 1 saw.
It was mentioned on This American Life a couple months ago.
This was the game that, like, Final Fantasy was a pretty big franchise before this. This is the game that made Final Fantasy what we know it as today. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
No pressure.
No pressure. There's a lot of pressure. If we don't like this game, this show is over. People are going to track us down and kill us. Hope y'all really like this song, because I got 2 options from Smash. And this is one of them. Thanks, Square.
That's okay. It's not like Final Fantasy is known for good music or anything.
Not like Final Fantasy is known for having one of the most notable composers in all of video games.
Yeah, I mean, it only has 2 songs. How notable could it be?
That's another thing that's going to change compared to Earthbound. We did mention this during the Earthbound episode, the last Earthbound episode. We're going to talk about the music as we go instead of saving it all for the end this time.
Because that was a disaster.
That was this huge disaster. We had to leave songs off that we wanted to talk about because it would have been an hour long.
You say we, but that was just you. You're the one that can't let go.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the songs as we go, because this is going to be yet another game where the soundtrack is massive. And I'm looking forward to it. With that, you can find us on Twitter at Smashterpieces. You can find us on Facebook at Smashterpieces. You can find us on YouTube at Smashterpieces. If you're seeing a pattern, it's because there's one. And you can find me on Twitter at TheDebugga. You can find Matt at GrimaceDoMenace. You can find us on Twitch. You can find the streams on NWR coming from
Matt
on every Thursday around 6 p.m. So, yeah, follow our Twitter to find out who's streaming where. It'll be pretty easy. With that, I'm Joe.
I'm Matt.
And we will see you next time for the first part of our discussion on Final Fantasy VII.